So let's start by defining what a pass-by-value parameter is. So like the word says it, pass-by-value parameters passes one value. So in other words, we can see that in our pass-by-value parameter we have different variables, but the function call is declared to a variable itself. So that way when the function call is executed, only one value is returned and stored into that variable in our previous function. So let's take a look at a chunk of code and see what really is meant by all of this. Okay, so here's our chunk of code, and as we can see in our main function, we have two variables declared, and that's temp and Celsius. And you notice that in our external function, we have also a variable declared, actually two variables declared, and that's Cel and Fahrenheit. So going back to our main function, we see that, like stated before, temp is a variable here in int main that is actually equivalent to our function call. So what this program is saying is that temperature is equal to whatever is being done in our function, our external function. So let's take a look at what's being done in our external function. So we have our external function, which is an integer, and the parameters, which are also an integer. And looking back at our function call, it's different. It's different variables. So Celsius is not the same variable as Cel. But that's fine. They're both integers, so they can be interchangeable. So we see that in our external function we have Fahrenheit, and that's equivalent to the operations that it's performing. And that Fahrenheit, those operations, whatever equals to those operations, is stored in Fahrenheit, and Fahrenheit is then returned to int main, where in int main it's going to be equal and stored into another variable. So that you can see that one value, and that's the value of Fahrenheit, is stored in or returned to your main function. So here we have a pass-by-reference parameters, and so right here we're saying that our pass-by-reference parameters are different than our pass-by-value parameters. So there are two different types of parameters, where in our pass-by-reference parameters we have a different syntax between the declaration of our variable and our variable itself. So if, for example, we have as one of our parameters int num1, our and sign would be right between the int num1 and int and num1. So the concept of this parameter is that if we have our variable, let's just say that in int main we have a variable that is declared to a value. That value, if that variable is used in the parameters, the value will transfer into our next function and be used in the next function. So let's just take a look at a chunk of code and see really what is going on with this transfer of values and these variables. Okay, so here we have a simple program that just pretty much goes straight to the point and explains what a pass-by reference parameter does. So this program was taken from C++ and it was modified a little bit in order to fit this explanation. So here to the right we see that we have our output. Our program runs and compiles and runs, and here we have a chunk of code to the left. So we have our main function and our external function, where in our main function we have x, y, and z variables that are integers and have a value declared to them. So after that we have our function call that goes to our external function, and we notice that we have as parameters x, y, and z in our function call, and in our in our function we have parameters of a, b, and c. The values of the values in the parameters in main, so x, y, z, transfer to the values um, of your external function. So a is going to be equal to 1, b is going to be equal to 3, and c is equal to 7, because they are respective. So x, y, and z, a, b, and c. So we notice that the program uses these numbers, 1, 3, and 7, for in our external function. So we notice that a is equal to 1. So 1 times 2 outputs to 2, and that's back in our main function, where our cout statement states that the numbers are returned as x, y, and z. So again, a equals to 1, so 1 times 2 equals to 2, and so that's returned to x. And so b equals to 3, and so 3 times 2 is 6, and so that's returned to y. And c equals to 7, and 7 times 2 equals 14, and so that is returned in our main function to 14.